here and a little bit of celebratory Lafroig here.
Lafroig.
Yeah, Lafroig. Though it's it's a little earlier here, but that's okay. It's Saturday.
Yeah. It's like 2 o'clock. Hello everybody. I saw that we've gone live. I'm sorry we're a couple of minutes late starting there. Just one of those things with technical issues. The technical issue being that I couldn't find my damn room. So, we've got priorities in our lives here. Hope everybody's okay, and we've got the wonderful fucking Neil Hellegers with us.
Yeah, wonderful fucking Neil Hellegers. That is actually my middle, and that's my confirmation name. That's my bar mitzvah name. That's what my friends call me. Look, it's so I should say, Jez, I should start off I did manage to finish Forge Steel yesterday, clocking in at a little over 20 hours raw. So this is perfect because I'm like, there's Steel's released earlier this week, but more importantly, like I'm in your head, I'm like very in your fucking mindset. You can hear it, like the casual throwing in of expletives, as I
breathe
deep in the weeds of Forged Steel. But I was happy. I was intending to finish it and start a little later than I wanted to, but yeah. Just over 20 hours raw.
Nice.
Yeah, respectable length. Where are we going?
Sorry, it's just really windy here, so I've got the windows open.
Sure.
And I was just closing them because they were jingling and jangling, and I was like, bloody things.
Oh, so you just have wind. You don't have wood smoke like we're getting on the east coast of the U.S. these days.
I think Canada's on fire, isn't it?
Canada's mostly on fire. Canada, it's something like 70 wildfires. They're worst on record, and it's nothing new. But this sort of the East Coast, West Coast is used to this, but they're also used to earthquakes. So good luck there. But yeah, we had that sort of Mars-like conditions a few weeks ago, and I'm in a booth, and my air is technically filtered that gets in the ventilator, but I still come out like I woke up this morning feeling like I smoked like a pack of cigarettes just from like talking and being around New York City all day. There are worse things, but yeah, it's but it is, it's just, that's the future now. This is we're like sliding into post-apocalyptic. So we're taking it by baby steps at a time. First, we can't breathe, then we can't drink the water. Then all the pigs die. Then we lose bacon.
No. We can't lose bacon. There's only so far I'm willing to go with life. Though
whether it's back bacon or okay. Now, how does it feel to be at least 10 times sexier than Jez? At least. I don't know. I mean, I think sexiness is transferable. So I think what you're seeing right now is, like I was saying, I'm working off of like my mana channels are full of Jez right now. That sounds wrong.
Yeah, baby.
All the sediment has been kicked up, and and that's what I mean. Like I'm so. But Forge Steel, correct me if I'm wrong. Forge Steel hasn't come out yet, right? So I shouldn't say anything spoilery.
No. The ebook is out.
Ebook is
it's already out, so you're safe with spoilers.
Okay, good.
We'll say now there may well be spoilers, guys. So if you haven't read and you're waiting for the audio, there may well be spoilers in this one. So
I won't get. I mean, if we talk about it, I won't be like. I'll mention like, oh, this thing was cool, without necessarily saying precisely what happened. But there's so much cool stuff in Forge Steel. I kind of see when we were talking about it, when you came to the realization that you're like, I need to. We need another book in here before Glass. And I think I could kind of see where that was coming from, because there's a lot of great action pieces and set pieces and things like that, but there's a lot of like, fuck, we need to sort this shit out. My question for you is, at what point did you realize, or did you plan all along, that they had mismanaged the mana? I know it is just sticking wrong. That they had mismanaged the converters and the storage. That the bronze thing into, like, they actually needed steel converters and all that.
Some of it I'd known all along that they were going to have to, because obviously I'd always planned that each epoch would be built upon like the bones of the last one, essentially.
Sure. Yeah.
And so it's a case of, if you can build every single piece of technology in this epoch, then the next one you could build every single level of technology again, and you would grow massively powerful.
Yeah.
But the problem is that there's only so much time. You've got to do this in a limited period of time. So it's a case of you trade off how much I could be so much stronger by doing all this right now. Hey, TJ. But you've got, if I do that, I am so much weaker in the area compared to everything around me. So long term, you'd be far more powerful, but in the short term, you just get crushed. So it's like, some people did complain that the sort of the undead in 2 and 3 were so powerful compared to Matt. And
Yeah.
I'll say, well, this is basically because Matt is spreading himself out. He's trying to get everything and do everything.
Yeah.
They've just gone down one path. And if you go down one path to power, you become a glass cannon.
Yeah.
You know, you've like the what the fuck's his name? Main bad guy of 3. God, I can't remember his name right now.
Not Daedalus, but not Dickless. Daedalus.
Yeah.
Sorry, right, Dickless. Yes, not Daedalus. Daedalus.
But he essentially became hugely powerful.
Yeah.
But as soon as he ran out of mana, he was just utterly fucked.
Well, and it didn't even occur to me until Matt and Ali talked about it later on that like, and we don't know for sure about these other dungeons, but like they're like, well, we made a dungeon for people, not just like make me strong and make me and advance my dungeon creatures. Like all the mana, any and all mana spent on housing, on food, on warmth, or all that kind of stuff is a value that they kind of took. But just to back up about the realization about the converters, it's one of the things I love about the process, about the procession here, is that they make mistakes, even little things like, oh fuck, I meant to invite Sarah to this, that's what keeps, I think, it from being this like almost too easy, smooth progression to power, that they're people. And I hear this a lot, I hear this a lot with like people like, oh, this MC or this MC, like, why are they making, like, how come they don't remember all their spells, or like they don't use all their stuff? It's like, have you ever tried being in a post-apocalyptic scenario and a dungeon lord? No, you haven't. And until you've walked a mile in his pauldrons, I guess, like you or Sabatons, you don't know, like in that situation, you're going to forget stuff, or you're going to spam your lightning spell because it fucking works. And you might forget that you're like, oh, I have something that's about like some other reconfiguration spell, but I never use it. And in the heat of the moment, I'm not going to be able to flip to my list of spells or whatever,
like, let's just pause everything. Everybody, if you just stop there for a minute. This is a perfect counter for this. And it's like, well, no, lightning works, and lightning is instinctive for him.
Yeah.
So it's a case of you go lightning, you go hard.
Yeah, exactly. In a pinch, certainly too. But like I said, I appreciate that Matt's a very imperfect character, and as such makes him a lot more relatable. But it explains things like, like the progression, especially with city building. There's a trick to getting it, not sort of like, wait a minute, how'd they get so far so fast? But when you really see like, oh, we had to double back on this, like, oh, that whole line of research was a complete mistake. You can even hear it. I'm still saying not saying American research, but I have like Matt pronouncing like details research, except for ass. Do you want to talk about ass? The arse ass conversation.
See, we say ass.
Yeah, this is the real BTS that people are looking for. Matt in the book often is written as saying arse, and I thought of it as like, well, I mean, there's a lot about like Matt speaking with a general American accent, but his lexicon is mostly is north, is Geordie and all that, and so, but I made the choice to make certain words, like he says details and he says research and he says literally instead of literally, or research, but when it came into arse, I'm like, oh, well, he would say that, he would drop the R, it'd be non-erotic, he would just say ass. Like, why would he be saying arse? And so I started making the change, and I told Tantor, by the way, and I think we talked about it at some point in book 1.
Yeah.
Like, by the way, this is work, right? Any references to arse should be understood to be said as ass. And I forgot to say that for Steel, and I got all these pickups like, it's not ass, it's arse. But then we talked about it, and Jez told me that even though you guys drop your R's, you still make sure a point to say arse rather than ass, like those Southern people do, But at this point, I'm kind of locked into it. It'd be weird if all of a sudden Matt started saying arse in the series. So I kept most of them, except when it felt like a deliberate choice to be saying like this in this moment, usually for narration, he would say arse. These are the very technical details that go into a narration. Arse, ass, arse, asses. Arsenic.
There's so much more considerations that people know.
I'm trying to be inclusive, for all those arseholes.
Yeah, definitely. It's wonderful. Honestly, I can't thank you enough for doing the audio for these, because it is wonderful to hear your voice on them. Just to hear the life that you bring into them. No, arsehole. As opposed to asshole, but fuck you. Jay, you're wrong. Don't worry about it.
They hit different.
But I mean, for example, my mother absolutely love. She listens to all of your books.
Oh, nice.
But she listens to Age of Stone, like she listens to them because they're partially because they're mine and partially because they're yours. She doesn't listen to any of the others. She doesn't like the others. And I'm just like, all right,
I'm really historically when in dating situations, I was always very good with mothers. So it's all
probably
very, it's very copacetic, Well, and because I realized also like the difference in a way between the previous books that I did and up to Steel was that we really like we would like we chatted a little bit here and there. Like I would ask questions about the upcoming book and things like that, but not until Dragon Con last year did we really like get a chance to like legit hang out and like it's always interesting to me people's like online work persona, even people whose persona is their persona. It's still very different when you're actually sitting when you're belly up to the pub with them, and you really get a sense of like Chatfield, for example, is way different cat when you're seeing him in like chaps on a table with a cowboy hat. We'll talk about some other but what I mean by that is like, because of us hanging out there, I had a lot more of your voice in my head, and I got it made sense to me how your voice in a way is like Matt. I'm not saying that you wrote Matt to be like a stand-in for yourself, but there's a lot I see a lot of Matt and you, especially with the Legion. It's sort of like it's like, well, someone's got to fucking lead this thing, so I guess here I am, taking like reluctant positions of responsibility while swinging a bottle of rum is like precisely your style. And so it was very helpful in a way, informed so much more about who Matt was that I had some sense of, a good sense of 3 books, 40 hours in or whatever. But even more so for Steel and then for Forge Steel as we kind of going along. So it's what's great about being able to be mates. It's like having that, Yeah, Paul, we had a good time.
It was good. It was good.
Mm-hmm.
In fact, the cat is currently on the top of the window over there. She may well make no appearance whatsoever tonight because it's still sunny here with it being earlier. So she's currently just laid in the sun. So
you know what it is? It's because everyone talked about it. Is she going to show up? She's like, I'm not showing up. Whatever.
Typical cat. She's like, yeah, fuck no. To see all that, Jez, you're amazing talent.
Thank you, Christine. Thanks, well, as I understand it, as Christine and I largely have to thank you for getting the gig in the first place. So, as the legend goes, that that's Christine's like, this is the one. Yeah.
It was literally, we were lying in bed. We'll come back to you in a second. We were lying in bed and we were just listening to sort of some of the submissions, because Tantor obviously would talk to Tantor and say, right, we'll put this, try this. I was like, no, and I was like, darling, she's lying there or whatever. It's like, what do you think of this? And she pressed play. She went, yes, it's him. He's doing it.
Chapter 1. Good. Yeah.
Okay. Do you want to listen to more? No, I don't need to. That is the man for it. I was like, right. Fair enough.
There was a question a second ago about what character voices drive me crazy. Oh, here it is again. Driven me demented, caused me to say what the well, I mean, so in terms of like character, well, in general, there's a very particular challenge to not just doing dialect work, which I do kind of all the time. It's that I'm doing Matt and the narration in one, and then everyone he interacts with, every single person are all of these, a variety of people that I need to keep clear in terms of who they all are and kind of keeping them separate and try to give, at least subtle differences. When you have so many characters, like it's not at a certain level, not everyone can have a completely unique voice, especially when you have people like coming, like Andre and Jimmy is a good example. They're brothers. They talk the same way, but we have to hear the difference. So Jimmy is a little deeper, is described as deeper, and Andre is a little more chatty. So he's a little more, slightly more specific and higher. It's the, ordinarily, with UK accents, it's usually, I mean, so much more of the time, like 90% of the time I've been doing, it's more on the RP side of things, more Southern things like that. And it hasn't been until these books where it's the particular Geordie, it's the particular more blend of the Northern accents. That's been great to do because it breaks up the monopoly of like, hello, certain characters like Griffiths and Rhodes, people who make sense were from farther south had that kind of accent, but keeping the us in there, or God, God save me, every time the word book comes up, I got to make sure. And actually, it didn't come up until recently, until they're talking about the Airy, the little room on the top of the pole. And all of a sudden it's Chris talking about, well, what can I book it? And I'm like, yes, finally, thank God, I can include that gem. I often say that Jez has never written a book in his life, but he's written many books.
Yes, it's entirely true.
Yeah.
One of the best things is Griffiths is actually based on one of our ARC readers, who's Welsh.
Oh, it's Welsh. Oh, I see. I would have
the
done
reason for it.
Yeah.
He's mentioned as coming from London. And the reason for it is that he served in the army, and he was an NCO, which is why he's a captain, just to fuck with them. And the Bearskins, the Coldstream Guard that he's part of, are the very ceremonial unit that you have outside of Buckingham Palace and so on. So it's basically the poshest of the poshest of the posh, just to fuck with Griffiths, with the real Richard Griffiths. When he found out he was, first of all, he was an officer, and then he was a member of the Coldstream, he was like, you fucking bastard.
We had that a few times about, like, I forget the guy's name offhand, but the prologue, the guys, the poor sods are going off the Otterburn at the very beginning of the book, is also an NCO who had the bad luck of becoming an officer, and that the Rupert, that whole thing. But what was I going to say? The Coldstream, the Coldstream Guards, and that's the same. Like, they're a historical, like, but aren't they the ones who are like sort of basically known for kind of fucking up the Irish in those wars? Weren't they like the Marines that were principally the ones sent over there? And is that the same?
Coldstream did spend a lot of time over there. Yeah.
They talk about the Coldstream in Neil Stephenson's System of the World trilogy. The sort of, when they go back in time to the early 1700s, the troop that they're talking about there a lot is the Coldstream Guards as well too.
Yeah, the Coldstream they're viewed as, people see them in all their red and their black and the bearskins and standing as ceremonial, and people are like, pfft. And they're actually hard as fuck. They are absolute hard as nails. But I mean, let's face it. I think it was one of the guys in the Coldstream that I heard a tale about a few years back from a friend who's in, saying that it was one of their sergeants that holds the longest record for standing at attention, which was something like 37 hours straight. And he passed out from buildup of toxins because he hadn't gone for a wee in so long.
Oh, yeah.
And it was the buildup of the toxins in his body that made him pass out.
There was something recently about some trombonist in the Coldstreams passing out, and you could see him on the ground with the trumpet. He's like, "Fuck, I'm still going."
Oh, they don't stop.
No demerits, No, Paul. Believe it or not, like when I'm reading the book, I have to slow myself down. I'm still a pretty fast reader. My apologies to people who are like, these books are not Jez's books, but other people like, their books are so short. It was like, it's not because of the writing, it's because I talk fucking fast. But everyone speeds up their books to 1.5 nowadays anyway, so I'm just saving them the trouble. Be like, fine, if you want to listen to it faster, I don't know, but it is my natural tempo. But I do have to be an effort to, like, I gotta slow the fuck down because they are, 1 second, because otherwise, it gets, but in those action sequences, actually more than anything else, that's when I'm like, what if instead of, like, it feels natural to pace action quickly in some way, but it's also kind of like there's that bullet time thing that happens when people are really in it. And I kind of like try to save those really slow moments for those like key like moments where you're describing very specifically, like, spear goes like this, shield goes like this, goblin goes like this, boot comes down like that on the fucking goblin's head. But I have to remain very conscious of that in general about not speaking too fast. Also I guess I could make more mistakes, or that get corrected. But give an Irish accent a go, because I typically hear like I sound like an intentional parody. There's so many different Irish accents to go, because I typically hear anyway. And recently I did a lot more Scots, and the trick is differentiating Scots from Irish as well too. And there's many different Scots as well too. And there's like a crossover between them, but it's so that toy instead of toy, the Scots are more that always sound like if you're playing with a toy, it's different. If you're playing with a toy, it's like there's so many similarities, but like if I went from right to the other, that's what kind of fucks me up, is like, wait, who are we? We're going, what section, what 10 stretch mile of the Isles are we talking about that's different from this 10 stretch mile of the Isles we're talking about in here as well too? But
it's insane how different the accents are here. There's places that I can go in England that I can't understand a fucking word they're saying. I worked with a Welsh chef once, I worked with him for about 9 months, and I couldn't understand a fucking word. He literally ended up, and he had to have like things around the kitchen, and that it were like prompts, things like chicken or whatever. He'd be like, he would have the menu, and he'd be just like, "This, I need fucking 2 of these," and you're like, "Right, I know what you're doing now." But he'd talk, and he'd be rabbiting about like stories about being at home. And I'd just be sitting there just going,
but top at all. I mean, I also had a chef that in like the first place I worked in the kitchen, who it took us a while when he was saying mop on the floor. We're like, what? I'm sorry, what? Mop on the floor? That means just a mop on the floor, please, which we translate as Muppet the floor. And it's like, yes, we'll Muppet the floor, But well, it's when I was in Scotland last summer for a friend's wedding, it was like I knew I had some Scots coming up in a book, and so I was like in study mode, listening to everyone. And it's sort of like you begin the night and be like, okay, I'm following this, I'm hearing this, I'm getting all the changes. 3 or 4 pints in, and it's I'm sorry, like I'm kind of nodding and smiling at this point, but then I have 3 pints, and then I can understand you perfectly. It's amazing how that works, It's the natural lubricant. But we talked about this. There's those couple of characters that come up in the training dungeon, Drac and the fairy whose name escapes me right at this moment, Ciara, right? Who we talked about being like, oh well, if the dungeon is translating them, like Drac says, like no, this is just we're all speaking this. It sounds like we're all speaking the same language because of the magic. That they would have Matt's accent, and so it's all of Matt's particular version of North American / with a couple of Anglo pronunciations thrown in. But it was so fun. It was all of a sudden, it was like all these different characters in the same world, as opposed to Matt interacting with every one of this sort of like rainbow of the Isle accents, also a lot of fun. Drac's a great character. I'm glad well, I won't say anything.
Yeah. He's going to be fun. There's definitely plans for Drax and a few more from his kind, should we say? And
well, I want to see Drac hanging out with Beta. I think they're. What do the kids say? I stand Drac and Beta. They, no ship. That's what the children say. They say ship for their relationships between with Drac and Beta. Making
I couldn't possibly comment.
Clutching eggs. Yeah, don't say anything. What's a harder accent for you to speak for a book? Scottish or Louisiana Bayou? Louisiana Bayou, probably because like deep swamp, like something like you have swamp in your mouth. Probably just because I've heard more of that, and that's easier to sort of slip into. With Scots, I still have to be like, wait, did I make all the changes? Or like, oh, what's the case here? Like, does the T go out of this word? Is this a kind of Scot that says Scottish, or do they say Scottish? Do they keep their T? All that, the glottal stops or not? That is like slightly less second nature than me just sliding into some, whether it's Louisiana or Alabama or all the different Southern accents too. See, they're all fucking different too, but but weirdly, it's like less occasion to be like, you usually get the choice. Rare in the book, they say so-and-so from Tennessee walked up to so-and-so from Alabama, and for me to know the difference. Like I technically know what those differences are. Tennessee is a little thinner in a kind of way. It sort of makes me think of like it's the Irish of the Southern ones, because it's got like Texas, it's got a harder jaw to it. The Tennessee versus the Carolinas, but all those accents are changing anyway too, and that's true in the UK as well. Like what used to be is not really like very few people does a real RP anymore, and it's usually because there's some kind of arsehole. Yeah, so like they made a choice to be like, yeah, I'm gonna talk in a way that was popular with aristocracy 150 fucking years ago. So
yeah, there was a guy I actually went to school with who used to say thee and thou.
Oh.
Thou best watch thyself.
Whoa, what a prick.
So like, all right, you fucking weirdo.
All right, each their own. Whatever floats his boat, I suppose.
Yeah, there's some fucking strange people out there.
Yeah.
Michael, mate.
Hello, Michael.
I mean, talking about just the accents and stuff, I don't know how you do it, Ryan, dude. Next one. I genuinely don't know how you do it, Neil, because I couldn't keep those things straight. I mean, I have a friend who's an Aussie, for example, not a friend that I've seen for a while. I used to spend a lot of time with him. Used to live sort of not far from him. We used to go out drinking in Newcastle a lot. And by the end of the night, I would be speaking with an Aussie accent.
Sure.
Unintentionally. And it would just get in my head and I couldn't get rid of the fucker. But I could never change from accent to accent to accent to accent. It's fucking magic, man.
I'm going to see thee thou all day today. Yes.
Yeah.
I mean, it's, you know, like any other job, it's part of the specialized skill set of what I do to kind of be able to hop back and forth. But also it's like, do keep in mind, like, when I'm recording in here, like I'm stopping and starting all the time, you know, I'm like, wait, hold on, let me try that again, you know, or like I'll listen back. I'm like, that he said enough. And I said enough instead of enough. And that's not right for that person. So I have to do it again. And it takes me longer to do it. But it's like, I think of it as like colors, you know, I think this character is this color, this character is this color. And if I hear the wrong color, if I'm listening back to something, but I don't have the time. I mean, I have only so many hours work in the day before I have to like do whatever, pick up my kids. So I have to kind of trust that I'm getting it right and moving on and can't listen back to all of it. And whenever I do, I'm hearing like problems. Hey, Richard. Hey, Griffiths.
Yeah.
Yeah, Aussie is just a Brit accent turned sideways. Aussie is like one of the ones that I took a while to like own up to. Like, I don't really exactly know what I'm doing, and I can't just get away with doing like a Strand accent for every time it comes up. But I actually have a cousin of mine grew up there, and she's got a very interesting Australian. She's got like I guess a more posh. Like she went to private school. They would call private school there, or private school here there. And so whenever I come to something, I'm like, hey, would you just like give me a few seconds of this so I can hear what the flavor is? And she read it back. I'm like, right, okay, I got it now. But it's more like when I get into the accents that I'm, you know, not guessing at, but I have to kind of be sure that I'm doing service to, like Nigerian accents, things like that. Like I want to know the difference between like I had a scene kind of early on between there was a Haitian vampire in the room, a Nigerian, a Cuban, and an American. And it was about keeping like what's the difference between the Nigerian, like really, and it's not just like a Nigerian accent. It's like, what's this Nigerian doing speaking English? What's this Haitian doing? There's a lot of similarities between the two of them, but the Haitian has this French influence, whereas the Nigerian, more often than not, they'd be speaking British English, which is becoming less true. Around the world, people are learning to speak American English more often than they used to learn to speak British English before the sun didn't set on it and all that stuff. But in these like modern, try a Welsh one. I don't know if that's right at all. Hoita toita toita toy.
You need a sheep in each hand if you're over the Welsh.
All of a sudden. Yeah, I would need to. I would need a sheep. Sorry, Richard. I apologize. I'm just a filthy American. No,
I don't apologize.
Colonial. I'm a dumb colonial, is what I am. Yeah.
Yeah, it's. I have heard that it's coming back up to Ungrateful Colonial Day as well for you guys.
Oh yeah. We're coming up on we're celebrating our freedoms by slowly stripping them away. That's how we do things in America, you know. And barbecue and fireworks. So yeah,
which is all right. You know, at least you're getting some of the good bits as well.
Oh yeah. We're having some friends over later. It's my wife's birthday is tomorrow. Happy birthday, Allison. But we're having some folks over today, and I'm making a mess of barbecue chicken and sausages, and the boy's making a caprese, which is his favorite thing to be chopping up these days. And we just kind of, you know, I don't have to record until Wednesday, so I can kind of chill out and relax a bit, not worry about the dehydration on the old vocal cords. So should be pretty chill. Pointing Roman candles at each other, you know. Harry Potter battles in the 4th. That was never our tradition. We do full on reenactments. That's not true. There's there in my area of Brooklyn is right where the battle. They call it the Battle of Brooklyn because it's cooler. It was legit called the Battle of Long Island. It's basically the battle where Washington did what he's not supposed to do about dividing his troops in the face of an unknown foe. And basically got defeated and retreated all the way up to where the George Washington Bridge is now, and then retreated over to Jersey, and then ran through the trees basically for a while. But all these spots around here that around the 4th and in August, which is the actual historical date for those battle, they do like, yes, and then Washington screwed up here, and then Washington screwed up over here, and then Washington messed up over here. Like, oh yeah, here's where the bunch of Connecticut regiment got killed and then buried right here. Yep, that's the place, you know. It's charming. But they do reenactments by the cemetery. There's a big cemetery called Greenwood right where I live, which is beautiful, old style, like old for, you know, here, which is to say measly 250 or something years old, but nothing. Yeah.
It's an out, man.
Yeah. Yeah.
See, it's a bit weird at times because here in the UK, I mean, I was never particularly great at school, but it's a case of like,
True.
Yeah, I bet they are as well. But we were basically told, oh, yes, and then the Americans, the ungrateful bastards, they just fucked off and kicked us all out of there. And that's pretty much the extent of our teaching on that.
It's embarrassing. I get it.
Because there's a lot more of, hey, we were off conquering the fucking known world and fighting with the Spanish and why we all hate the French. I mean, hatred of the French is pretty ingrained of those are bastards. No matter what goes on, massive wars with Germany, wars with you guys, wars with anybody. It's totally acceptable. It's like, well, that's what happens when you fall out with somebody. Right. The French, it's a case of their dog was fucking barking. That's it. We're going to war. That's pretty much the way it is with the French.
Or to be honest, like their dog is barking again. We're going to war again. Yeah,
that's it.
Oh yeah. That's now 4th of July. Yeah, there you go. It lingers, and we're also spelling it FOURTH apparently, not FORT, the 4th or 5th. Can you mimic Jez at all when you hear that? There's a character in there who, well, that's what I'm saying. Like Matt has a lot of like Jez's energy, but when I think of voice, Chris is a lot of what I think of. Yeah. By and large, kind of, he's a mix of that, and his energy is also a lot like I forget the actor's name. He plays what's the Apple TV football game? Excuse me, that everyone's all crazy about. With the American manages the
Ted Lasso.
Ted Lasso. Yeah, Jamie, the character in that. Jamie. He like if we were going to cast Chris in a movie, we'd cast that dude to be. You shot your friend's dick, or you shot your friend whose name is Richard? Sorry. So those pieces of it are kind of in there, but when my reference point when I think about it is when I'm reminded of things is like like how would Jez say this, and then that's my like intro entree, I should say, to that accent as practiced by so many of these Newcastleans. How do you say it? Newcastle.
Fucking weirdos, really.
Fucking weirdos, yeah.
Geordies are basically where I am. If you know anything of sort of the area from above, you've got sort of Newcastle is the north side of the Weir. So that's Geordies.
Yeah.
You've got Mackhams are Sunderland, which, as Kev says there, Mackhams are scum. Yes, thanks for putting that in there.
Yeah. You worked that into the prologue for Steel too. I noticed that. Yeah.
The thing is, I actually grew up in the middle of both of these two sort of cities.
Oh.
So I grew up in a a fairly big place called Washington, which was originally ran and referenced by the George Washington family. That was where they came from.
Oh, I wonder about that. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's like literally the restaurant that I grew up as part of and that we owned was the original Blacksmiths, which was owned by the Wessington family. So it was like we had, when you talk about like old stuff, we had documents there saying that the building was there from the like 1070.
Wow.
So it's
Hastings like stuff, or that's just post Hastings, Battle of Hastings.
Yeah, literally, but it's like that kind of old. So when people talk about old, it's like we used to own a building that was
1843.
Like years.
It goes way back to like 30 seconds ago.
Pretty much, but it's great because I used to be surrounded by both groups, and we have Sunderland and Newcastle, and they hate each other with absolute passion. And so because they both had big football teams, and they would play each year in the derby matches, and what would happen is they would play each other, and the police would be heavily involved because there'd be nerve gas, there'd be like literally tear gas released, there'd be entire areas would just be shut down for everybody to fight in.
Oh yeah, you mentioned that's in Forge Steel, right? They said they just block off both ends of the street, let them fight it out. Like who was it? Was it the Nashi fighting each other, or whoever? No, the goblins fighting each other. Yeah.
But it was literally a case of we used to just be there and we'd be in the bar and we weren't really bothered about football, but we'd just be involved for shits and giggles. And we'd be drinking, watching as, the police, because there weren't enough police to stop it all, they'd just seal off the top and bottom and let everybody fight in the middle and just fucking, there you go.
Yeah.
And that was always brilliant fun because we'd just be in the bar, neck and pint, watching outside. It's like cabaret.
Yeah.
Like, whoa, see that fight. It's great. Oh.
Basically goblins, right? It's so funny. Much. It's one of those things that like because obviously doing gamelet after gamelet for many periods with like a brief like some romance here and there and some nonfiction kind of here and there, this sort of like tracking like trends of what people are thinking about different groups, and everyone right now is super hating on goblins. I mean, there always been characters in the books, but I don't know what it is. Like Eric's most recent one, the Slicing Men, yours, another couple that I can think of are all just like shitting on the goblins as being filthy, disgusting, like picking their boogers while simultaneously diddling themselves, kind of like degenerates, and it's great. Like it's sort of, but that's what it's so interesting. I mean, I don't know if we are going to meet them at some point. They're talking about these sort of like high goblins that are so apparently amazing that they don't even bother talking with anyone else as well too. As being like, it's, we all have, there's always going to be, someone's always going to be fodder, whether it's goblins or whether it's undead is being kind of fodder. But also simultaneously, it's like kobolds, I feel like, are having like all of a sudden, I feel like maybe this is my window on it, but it's, I guess, I read a fair amount. Between like Kale's books have like kobolds MCs, kobolds in Eric's book, kobolds in your books, everyone's like, hey, wait, kobolds, they're dragonkin, they're fucking awesome. You're like, why aren't we making more of these guys as opposed to them having be like kind of like on par with goblin little lizard like creatures, because they're dragonkin, they're tied into a bloodline that's so much more interesting. And what's the word you not transmorphic? What am I thinking of? Their ability to take on different something morphic. Maybe it's transmorphic. What's more do you use to describe? Yeah, maybe. Yeah, biomorphic, something like that. I don't know. So they change. Tell me, what'd you do to 24 kobolds? A word I realized I was saying wrong too. I was saying kobolds instead of kobold, like bold, like they're very bold. Polymorph, maybe polymorphic. Yeah, that's the word.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. We play. There's a few of us that play D&D every Wednesday night. Kev, Sinclair, Lars, Brian, myself, and it's good fun.
Who's the DM for that?
Jack Brophy. He's not known at the moment, but he is looking at releasing soon, and he's very good. He's absolutely batshit. And the stuff, I mean, my character is a paladin.
Okay.
Who's not very good at being good. He's basically an Oathbreaker paladin.
He's a paladont.
Yeah, very much. He's a paladont. Yes, I'll agree with that. Lars is a charlatan, who's basically he's the high priest of a god that he's made up, and he'll do things like everything's going to shit. We're all like fighting for our lives, and he'll turn around and go, "I shall save you all. I shall deal with this. My mighty magic," and he'll cast Mage Shield and fuck off. And it's just sort of like, you fucking bastard. It's
a Mage Shield.
That kind of level.
Yeah. Well, what'd you do to 20 kobolds?
Which time? I mean, there was an instance where I bench pressed a cube, which, hello, Facebook user. We love you too, random citizen. That had a flame dancer in it. And their trap was to break the Flame Dancer's cube and set it amongst our group. And Jack was really, really pissed off when I managed to roll a natural 20 and throw the fucking cube at them. So they were all terminated by their own thing. I think that might have been one of them. There's been quite a few little instances that have been painful.
Yeah. So Forge Steel is done. Steel's done, and Glass is coming up, not for a wee bit, because you have at least 30 other books to write in the interim, pretty much.
I've got a Rise to do. I'm going to get a Rise. Sort of, I'm nearly finished a Rise 3 at the moment.
Okay.
So I've got that 1 and 4 to do. Then I've got either 5 and 6 or Underverse 8 and 9. Then I'm going to do Rise of Mankind 6, 7, and 8. But like when I did Underverse 5 and 6, I had it in my head and I'd made the decision this will be a 6-book season. And this will be 8 books will finish Rise.
Drink.
Now, with Underverse, that meant that the average was 200,000 per book for 1, 2, 3, and 4. And then 5 was 300. And 6 was 415,000, because it was like, I am getting everything into these fucking books. I am going to finish this in 6. So in this case, knowing what is to come, knowing how much I have to cover, I think book 6 is probably going to be around the 300,000 mark.
Okay.
And then 300,000 to 400,000 for 7 and 8 each.
But we're talking, but so a little bit later into 24, you're talking, yeah?
Yeah, I'm thinking they're probably going to be, pretty much, Nathan. Indeterminate length. They're going to be probably summer of next year, I think.
Basically, so in other words, my entire summer will be summer of Rise. Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah, it may well be winter by the time I've actually finished writing them and got them to you. But you'll have.
Did I say 600? I meant 1,800,000. Yeah.
We'll keep you busy for at least 6 weeks.
That's
2
cool.
months or something.
That's fine. And I've never done this sort of like wandering in length books. I guess I'm trying to think of the longest was. I guess it must have been one of Chatfield's pushing like no. You know what it was? It was Outcast. Outcast was 27 hours. Outcast from Another World. I think it was the single longest. I've not pushed past 30. So exciting new things coming my way. Yes. 40-hour books, amazing.
But I did have the sort of the joke with Alaron when I'd finished Empire and we were talking about stuff because we were saying like for his monsters.
Yeah, that 46 something. Yeah.
It's like 46 and 40.
I think that's as long as 46. Yeah.
45, and we were both like, "Fuck, we need to do 48. We need to beat 48 just to have like literally 2 solid days."
Let me check my stats again.
I was like,
you know what? I think I missed something early in my stat sheet. Let me check it again. So you say,
the
what
only
were my
problem
spell
with
options again?
The only problem with it is that Amazon actually says that your book, is that the maximum of number of pages. They used to make it sort of like a recommendation, but now it's like literally it's 828 pages is the maximum.
Yeah,
and that's the maximum you can get. Well, you can make that for paperbacks. You can do that through Ingham Spark and other suppliers. You can make it bigger. You can make it 1,000 pages or whatever.
Yeah,
but you can't do hardbacks. Then you can't do paperbacks above a certain size. So you start looking at it and you go, well, I've got to condense it slightly, otherwise I just can't do it.
Yeah.
But if need be,
well, then you part 1, part 2, break it up as such too. Though, of course, that always runs the risk of someone be like, "This is a money grab," because you're, make it all one book or make it separate books, But of course, that's all under the general heading of there is never any possible way to please everyone. So you might as well just fucking do what suits your storytelling the best and say, I'm sorry, sir, if this offends you for some unknown reason. Perhaps when you write a book, you can do something differently yourself. But however, for now, this is how we're going about things. And you can either deal with it or you can not read the book. And that's fine, too.
Yeah. To be fair, there was an instance recently on Reddit. And Reddit is always such a well-mannered.
There's hardly any strife there, but go on. Yes. Yeah.
Where somebody was saying, so what the fuck is going on about this, second edition? Is it just a money grab and so on? And I was told, so somebody had sort of tagged me in and said, do you want to jump in here and have a word? Exactly. And I put in my reasoning for it. And to be absolutely fair to the guy, he turned around and he said, you know what, I'm really sorry. I didn't think of it from your point of view. I totally agree with what you've put in there. I'll take the post down. And other people have said, no, fuck it, leave the post up because it explains it really well.
Oh, yeah.
And I couldn't thank the guy enough because it happens every so often. There was a review 3 fucking years ago of Brightblade, the first edition, where this guy tore me a new fucking arsehole. And he did. And he was like, this is crap. This is wrong. The timing on this is shit. This is fanfic carried out poorly, is basically one of the things he said.
Harsh.
And when I redid it and I did the second edition, he actually changed his review and he got in touch and he said, look, if you don't read many reviews, please read this one. I'm just going to say that everything that I said you did wrong in the first one, you've fucking done it. You've fixed it and you've got a fan for life for this. And I was like,
yeah,
all right.
That's exactly what I was thinking. Like, whoa, crazy,
But that's the thing. We talk about the fact that so many people that we deal with on the internet are just screaming fucking from their mother's basements about I don't like this because I don't like this, and how dare you have, as I did in one of the other books, how dare you have two male characters hold hands, you filthy bastard.
Yeah.
I was accused of being a pervert for that one, and I was like, you are right, I am a pervert.
In fact,
Thank you for noticing.
Yeah.
Nothing to do with that, but I am a fucking filthy pervert. But it was a case of so many times we do read the reviews, we do hear things, and we go, fuck's sake. Yep. And to have reviewers, to have readers, to reach out and say, hey, you know what? I was fucking wrong. And I'm sorry, and I hold my hand up and I apologize. And that means the world to us, because we're like, wow, thank you. We've actually reached you with this, and, it matters.
Well, and there's a lot of people, and I know a lot of people, specifically in theater, maybe a little more so than audiobook narrators, who have a credo of never ever reading any reviews. And I completely see, I think in a stage context where you're going out there every night and you're doing it again, I don't necessarily want someone's even positive review of something, of a scene. This scene was fantastic, because if I happen to think of it, I'm putting an expectation into it and having to recreate it with that filter to that expectation. In this case, for these books, once they're done, and I can't change anything about them once they're out in the universe. But my credo early on, and there are narrators who never read any of the reviews. My credo early on was like, no, I'm gonna kind of take them all in, because I want to see what people are saying. I want to see people's reactions are, really specifically when I was getting started, so that I could, if there was some pattern of habits that I had that were getting in the way of people, if there weren't, I'm not precious about those things. Like, it's, like if you're sculpting a head made out of clay and you scrap it and start over again, the second one is going to be better. I don't know why I use that analogy, but still.
No,
and so a lot of times with, whether it's, like these characters' voices aren't far apart from each other, it's reminding myself to be like, you know what? Yeah, you're the only one who said that, who felt this way about this book, but you're right, sir. I can, or ma'am, I can, or they, I can always actually work harder to be sure that I'm distinguishing my vocal choices and not get lazy about it. Thank you so much. In a way, that's a lot more helpful to me than someone saying, hey, this guy's awesome, this guy's great, particularly if there's a pattern. If I see something come up a few times, That being said, also sometimes there's no winning over people's expectations, and I'm not going to talk about it at length, but certainly like let's say, for example, you happen to take over a series or something like that, which is a financial necessity decision that's got nothing to do with the quality of anyone involved. You're automatically asking for a ton of abuse. But when those people are like, oh, you know what, I didn't like his narrations at first, but later on they're like, you know what, actually I'm liking what he's doing now. It's the same kind of a thing. So it overall makes me a better narrator, to be open and to criticism and be receptive of criticism and not deny it, while at the same time like maintaining something of my own like composure and confidence in my capabilities to kind of to keep doing the thing, way I put it to that case is sort of like, I have a pretty high constitution, and so I can tank a little bit, but if I want to dual class as a rogue, I have to be able to putting my skill points in those two different categories at the same time, while not neglecting my constitution for the sake of my agility or whatever, so it's part and parcel of the whole thing when you have work in a medium where we're putting our work out in places where someone on fucking Audible or on Amazon has the capacity to be like, this is book 7 was the worst book of this series I've ever read. I'm like, dude, you read 1 through 6 though. Like, something's keeping you here, right? You read all the way through this book 7 here, clearly something's keeping you, exactly. Dodge tank. Yeah. All steel, all iron and steel interior chassis.
There is a guy out there who leaves a review every single time, and he knows who he is. I won't mention his name, but yeah, we all know who you are.
Kevin Sinclair.
No, it's not him, surprisingly. But what he does is he generally says things like, the last book was great, but this book is fucking terrible. It's the worst book he's ever written. I will never read another one of his books again if it's like this. I'm going to give him one more chance, and then that's it. I will never buy another one of his books. And he leaves that review for each of them. And it's sort of like, that kind of thing. And it's like, the last book was brilliant, but this one was terrible. And it's like, you said that the last book, you said that one was terrible.
Right.
And after a while, you're going, you're 7 books in. Why the fuck are you wasting your time if you hate them?
Right,
Just
like
stop reading
it's like it's a lot. I wish I had that much time to waste about being like hate reading a 500-page book.
Yeah.
I feel like what luxury he must exist, or she, or whoever must exist in to have that kind of time and space to do it. Well, something that narrators talk about a lot is that um, we we take great refuge in the fact that we've all been called at one point or another the worst narrator that's ever been. But we're like, well, hold on. How can I be the worst narrator that's ever been if you're also the worst narrator that's ever been? They can't possibly both be true at the same time. We can't be the worst. So by de facto, we're not. We're doing okay. So,
and then you look at the other side of it and you say it's some of the reviews you get. Seven King Clare, yeah, he is King Clare as
Don
well.
Incognito, yeah.
Yeah. Some of the reviews you get as well are absolutely fucking wonderful. And honestly, people, I will say, if you please leave reviews, please do continue to leave reviews.
Please like
and as much as we sort of have a go and take the piss out of people for it, we do read them. I mean, I try not to read many of them because some of them are so fucking horrible and some of them are so good. And it's a case of I have to read some of them when I first release. I always read some of the reviews to hope that because I write them, and when I'm writing it, it's a case of I think this is all right, but then I always think that well, yeah, it's all right. It's the best I can do. I'm fully expecting people to go, you know what, you're shit, and we've just found you out. You're not a real author, and I'll be like fuck, and I'll scurry away, and I'll get a normal job again. So when you read these reviews, you're like, oh, thank God. People like it. Yeah. And other people, leave a load of reviews, and some people leave fake reviews, and it's blatantly fake. It's a case of some of them leave things like, it's not a packet of, this brand sausages that I was looking for on the internet, therefore I will hate you.
Right. But I bought this other kind, and I ate the whole package of sausages, and I've come back to tell you. And you look at their other reviews, and they're like, I also got this package of chicken that I didn't like. I also got this package of chorizo that like they're always it is very heartening to look at, like, oh, this person just likes to leave bad reviews, never leaves, and presumably likes the genre or likes reading or listening. So we're not, but they're never saying the thing about the good thing that they like. It's much more satisfying for people to get out there and write that. But I deal with that too, of course. Really exactly the same kind of thing. Like obviously I'm kept pretty busy, but I always kind of think like maybe I'm kind of a hack. I've certainly in this booth, as of yesterday, called myself a hack out loud, recorded that. Make sure this doesn't end up in the book. But I always think that sort of imposter syndrome-y kind of thing. I would much rather be plagued with that than plagued with overconfidence. Because if I'm in the position of like, I'm a fucking hack, I need to be better. I'm always in that position of trying to improve my work, always in the position of trying to do better, to not assume that what I did was great, but to work at it being the best I can possibly craft it to be, even with my self-perceived limitations about it, so that I'm always doing this. And generally that's true. Like I'll listen to a book even from like a year ago, and I'm like, oh, okay, that's what I was doing then. All right. I mean, that's not bad, but really that since then I've gotten better at this and this. So it's heartening to do that. But yeah, I'm still never allowing myself to get ahead of that curve for myself, if that makes sense.
Very much so. I mean, when I hear my books and when I hear you're reading it and the story, I'm loving the life you bring to it. But I'm hearing, I used that word 3 times in like short succession. I shouldn't have used that word. Right? Yeah, I need to change that. I can't listen to no. That sounds wrong the way that's been phrased. That's because that's the way I've done this. I need to change that, and it kills me. But equally, you've got to hear it. You've got to listen to it. You've got to pick these things out. But
I always say that there's ARC readers and there's beta readers, but that the narrators are the Omega readers, because that's the one that gets locked down in a way too. And I don't necessarily do this, but oftentimes I'm like I highlight when it's sort of like, oh, if I made a small change to something, not like Orakai or Orkin or things like that. I'm going to say something about that in a second now, because there was a good chat about that on one of the Facebook pages the other day, and I'm a strong advocate of like, I'm just going to pivot to that right now. How the fuck would Matt know the difference between a clip and a magazine? And it's in his first person point of view. And the first military guy he comes across, I forget who it is like, no, man, this is the name for it. And from then on, he's like, yeah, it's like the difference between people saying, oh, this is a to get a classical example, Merchant of Venice is about the mistreatment of Shylock, who's a Jewish character. Now, it's not. I don't view it as someone who knows a bunch about Shakespeare, as a Jew myself. I don't view it as an anti-Semitic play. I view it as a play about anti-Semitism. So there's like a topicality embedded within the person's point of view, the character's point of view, that is being expressed and talked about. So in terms of like Matt's progress, like you better believe he fucking knows what a clip is versus a magazine.
Yeah.
So someone made, I don't know if this is the fun point, that maybe it was an M1 and it was a clip. Yeah, we don't know exactly what kind of weapon it was. But it's that it's it's that's a great example of people who are like, yeah, like they like there's an interchangeability to them in the popular colloquialism. But if you really want to start to get deep on those things, like for example, do you know that people use the term willy-nilly to mean like either or? Like really, like randomly, kind of. It's sort of used.
Yeah.
The actual root of that is will he, nil he, and if you pronounce that in what is like understood to be Elizabethan, what they call original pronunciation, it's wille nille. It's Petruchio and Taming of the Shrew uses it. Will he or nil he? It's like whether he wants to or not. But over time, people have distorted it into being willy nilly. Which is not at all what the word says, but it's become to understand that. Now, if every time someone's like, he said willy-nilly, and he should have meant randomly or something like that.
Yeah.
Or people
like
who
decimate.
Yeah.
People say, oh, he decimated his enemy, and it's like, what, he took 1 in 10 out. Or
he just fucking destroyed them, which is it's like people, what's the word that people were like, oh, that's not a word. It's like an or irregardless, people say. Now they say like, oh, irregardless is not a word. Like, but if it, I had this argument once with an ex of mine. Like I said, I used the word cope. Like, oh, I totally didn't cope with that. He's like, what's that? He's like, oh, I didn't deal with it. He's like, that's not a word. I'm like, it has letters. It has a vowel sound. It has some consonant sounds. It has a meaning that I understand, that I can use colloquially, that I can define, and that is used by a group of people that I went to college with, who we all said that word. Oh, I totally decoped. That's what it was. Decoped on something. Meaning to not deal with something, right? That's a word. Like, yeah, it might not be in the Oxford fucking dictionary, but it's a word in the same way that words carry meanings, and that they are necessarily very mutable. If someone says to you, if you're sitting there in the heat of battle and you're like, pass me that fucking clip, and they're like, this is a magazine, you're both dead in that interim that it took you to be in when it really matters. Yeah, okay, if you want to be technical about it, but it's fascinating to me that that there was 120 comments on that mention of that, and anyway, that all does for the category of like any press is, of course, is good press, but by and large, people were like, I was thankful to see it, because by and large, people are like, no, I get what you're saying, but this character Matt doesn't know the difference, and it's coming from his point of view. Yeah, if he was Griffiths, not the book Griffiths, not you, Richard, then that's us or whatever, but it's not. So good times. Yeah. No. Regardless, I will decimate them with this clip, unless you want to decope. No.
Yeah. There's a thing in the area where a lot of people use it pacifically instead of specifically, and it's like pacifically what, like it's fucking big and wet.
Oh, I know they are. Yes, no, he mentioned that character is
Yeah, it's one of those strange things. I mean, I've got it in, I think, book 3 or the chips. See, that is something I never get. Americans, chips are crisps for you guys.
Yeah.
Chips for us are like potatoes, like like French fries, but thicker and proper size.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing too, is that when I think of chips, though, I don't think of like skinny fries. I think of those like wedges, right? And that makes sense as a chip, because it's a chip of the potato, as I understand where it comes from, right? And they're only called fries otherwise because they were fried in oil or what have you. But that's my consistent terrible worst version of a dad joke is to take, if they're French fries but they're only called fries, but they're frites, they don't even call them that, So language is a funny fucking thing. So.
It's one of those weird things. It depends on where you are, it depends on the situation, the way you're talking. So you can never get it right.
Yeah, there's the M1. The M1 Garand. It was World War II. Was like the standard rifle that everyone used, or it's Garand, I forget. Was a clip. Yeah, instead it was not a magazine. It was that they had that thing where they tap it on their helmet and then slap it in. Yeah, all words are made up. Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
Yep.
My mother's
fish is called fish. You're not wrong there, mate. Freedom fries,
or as we call them in America, lack of freedom fries.
Yeah, pretty much. That's how we do it here as well at the moment. So who do you think you can verse about potatoes for that long? Oh, fucking hell, dude. We talk shit for like
we're going to do another full wind up just about fries, just about chips. Yeah.
Yeah. So are you coming to Podium's gig at
their cocktail, whatever it was, I RSVP'd for it. Yeah. I actually just got I slept on it. It was dumb of me, but I just got my DragonCon tickets and I need to actually get my flight. But that's still 3 months out or whatever it is. It's still pretty early for me to, I need to actually figure that out,
2 months, I think, but it's gonna be good fun.
I'm looking forward to it a lot. I had a great time last year, but now it's sort of like that having been done and getting more of an understanding of what the thing is going to be. What's up?
Fucking hell, man, Nathan.
Come here and say hello for a second. Come in, say hello. This is my son Edgar. He's gonna poke his head in for a second.
Edgar.
That's Jez.
Hello again.
Oh, you guys met in Edinburgh, remember?
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah. Okay. Are you doing your thing?
Yeah.
Okay. I'll be done shortly. Okay.
Poor Edgar. I mean, honestly, Neil, his wife, and his son were in Edinburgh, and so there's a bunch of us went up to visit him, and you guys were looking in nice shops. You were looking in like the Harry Potter shop, and me and Kevin Sinclair was up, and Dawn and Evan, and it was a case of we were sort of like, right, there's a bit of a queue to get into that shop. So me and Kev ran to the pub next door instead. A couple of pints.
As well you should. You're on holiday and wandering around. That was great fun. I was really glad that we met up with you guys and wandered around cemeteries and got a fantastic meal and Greyfriars. That was the cemetery we wandered around.
Yeah. We went and saw Greyfriars Bobby, and we drank and talked absolute rubbish, and poor Edgar was just sort of like sitting there with us all in on all the open air bars, just sitting there like.
Well, that worked out because we had gotten to what's up. Was it tomato nasal? It's on the table. You was it? See where the cheese was? Yeah. Okay, sorry. I actually kind of need to go a little bit shortly, but that he was kind of like he had been reading. He already finished reading the Potters, and there's that store on I think what's it called, Victoria Street. That's but he was kind of like he's kind of moving out of it for various reasons. Like he's kind of growing out of it. Then there was this whole interaction where Evan and Dawn went down the street to some sci-fi bookstore because we're also thinking. I was kind of being like, this is a good opportunity to get him in on some Tolkien, And so Evan was like, "Oh, there's a bookstore down here. I'll see if they have a copy of it." But it was that long line to kind of get in. Thanks, Jay. And so I'm up in the third floor window looking down the street, and I see Evan and Dawn. And I look down, and we do a whole like, our phones are not communicating with each other. I'm like yes, no, yes, because there was a great that edition of The Hobbit. That's the paper, the hardcover with his original drawing cover. What the version I'm talking about? That was for sale in there. And I'm like, this is a perfect opportunity to be like the segue out of Potterland and into Tolkien, but it's perfect. But so that was we had a great time on that trip, and I love that city. But I'm glad that we got a chance, even though you guys had a fucking time of it in terms of your hotel and stuff. But
that was fun. Yeah. For those who don't know, one of the hotels, basically, we turned up on the afternoon to get checked in. And we're told, we've still not got the rooms ready. We're running a bit late. Can you come back in a few hours? And we said, yeah, no worries. I'll park my car up over here. We'll go out and we'll just get lashed. We're drunk, for those who don't know. And we'll come back about 11-ish. And they're like, yeah, it's fine. Don't worry about it. And that was because the afternoon clerk was finishing. And so he was very happy to get us out because he didn't want to deal with the fact that he knew at that point the hotel had double booked and there were no rooms available for us whatsoever. So when we went back on the night time, quite drunk, and obviously too drunk to be able to move the car or anything like that, there were no rooms. And their response at that point was, we'll just have to go somewhere else. And that was fine for Kev and I, big blokes. So it's like, well, we'll just, fuck you, pal, I'll just sleep on the sofa here, or I'll just lie in the gutter or something.
We'll go back to the gutter that we came from.
Exactly. But for two of the people that were with us, Evan and Dawn being female, and that it was just like, that is not appropriate to be turning them out at 11 o'clock at night when we're all drunk in Edinburgh, in a city that none of us know, and just telling you, fuck off, not interested. So that was a fun evening where Chrissy, my wife, pulled out some absolute blinder and basically rang around all these hotels until she managed to find one, and then arranged taxis and everything, while putting up with the fact that I was too smashed to speak. So I was like, oh, taxi bad, hotel no like us.
Yes, darling, I got you, no problem. Yes, indeed, don't worry about it.
It was just like, give us 5 minutes, I'll sort it all out.
Good times.
Mm.
But yeah, but I'm looking forward to Dragon Con and have a better sense of like what it is like, you know, what the whole scene is kind of like. Looking forward to it, you know, and whether it's, you know, podiums thing or otherwise, and but just seeing people, and there'll be more narrators there. We're always getting more narrators to come out to that, which is awesome. You know, particularly ones that do a lot of game lit, because it's kind of, as conventions go, it seems like it's the largest collection of game lit authors, certainly, and increasingly narrators and fans and things like that too. And it's good that the management there is some degree recognizing it. I'm trying to work on some of the staff there to do a all narrator panel, putting that out into the universe. And like, we've been emailing, and she's like, well, let's see what we have, or so we have signed up, and I need to kind of circle back on that, as they say, to kind of push that a little bit more. But if not, even so, it's a great time, and it's great to see and hang out with everyone, and, you know, cosplay
Very
and all
much
that business
so.
too. So yeah.
Yeah.
And it'll be here before we know it too, you know.
Oh yeah, definitely. I'd imagine Podium would probably be able to swing in on that as well. They'd be quite happy to help out with it.
I've got a few different irons in the fire. You know, I think you know, I think it's numerous things under consideration, and hopefully something works out. But you know, because all the panels, there were like 4 or 5 different game lit oriented panels with authors and things like that, covering like mechanics or covering audio. You know, the Podium's one was about, that Victoria moderated, was about audio, but with narrator to up there to talk about it. But which is, you know,
really,
you know,
really
well, because they didn't there's not been, I think that was the first year that, not the first year that there were game lit authors there, but that there were any narrators in attendance. And so you know, it's everything's a long game, you know, whether it's this year, we have a handful of us, and that shows to the lit track people at Dragon Con that there's a serious presence, and that they can build on. You know, indie authors want to know about audio, and
exactly.
audiobook
And
narrators are like, we're our own
and
producers, and we're expected to wear so many hats, and so we have a lot of knowledge to share about that with a trade organization, Professional Audiobook Narrators Association, where that I'm on a committee for. We're working to create what's called an ambassador program, which is actively having narrators go to different author conventions. They're mostly indie conventions, including 20K books, you know, whatever that is exactly.
Vegas,
but yeah, Vegas, or all the other ones that are happening locally all over the country, and have narrators go and kind of provide a service in terms of talking through authors in terms of how these books are made, what are best production practices, what are fair, equitable practices, but also it's in a way it's a response to the whole AI thing, which is preying on indie authors more for whether it's for writing books or having books narrated. Like, they're the marks, they're the ones that all this money is being made in audio. But the AI companies aren't making money currently off of the listeners that put all that money into audio to make it big. They're building it on the backs of all of these indie authors who are like, who are like, I got to get an audio. I got to get audio. And they're like, oh, here's a cheaper, better way to do it. Oh, small caveat, you can't sell it on Audible. Yeah, you know, and you may not be able to, but that's okay. We're only really doing this so we can build our product and make it better, so that eventually, when Amazon does lower that barrier, we can go and do it. Or like the Mickelson twins and their scam. It was about, they used to be just about having someone write a cheapo nonfiction book about a current topic and putting it up on in KU. Now their gig is like, oh, you can get an AI narrator and an AI written book and an AI cover, and it's so much easier now. You know, again, this is all just people making money off of indie authors, and so whatever we can do to put the human back in the process and be like, well, yeah, it is more expensive than a terrible AI read, but you're getting that quality. Also, you're getting a person who knows how to sell your book, and increasingly narrators are people buy books because of narrators. You're like, oh, I love so and so I'm gonna,
Very much so.
I like Andrea, I like Travis, so I'm going to get their books, and they find new authors that way too. Like that's what happens. So it's the more of that we can kind of do within indie publishing, the better for everyone involved, and it stops. It curtails that the tech bro AI crowd, fresh off of their Bitcoin failures, to come in and be like, yeah, because they're not interested in making good books or making good audio. They're interested in making money for themselves. So, but less
the
of
thing
that.
is, well, some of these rip-off merchants that do this kind of shit, if they actually just put the effort that they're putting into ripping people off into writing or into doing whatever the job is, they could do it the right way.
Yeah.
It's like, if you're going to put that much effort in, stop fucking around and just do it yourself properly. But
I think we just lost Nathan, though. I think I just convinced him, like, wait, I could do this more inexpensively.
I'd beat him, but I know he enjoys it. So,
yeah, fair. That's not really a punishment. Yeah, like Archie and the Great. Yeah. I apologize. I have to beg off to take care of some stuff here too. But this is awesome. Thanks for.
It's been lovely to talk to you again. It's been great just to talk to you and have a chat about things. And I know at the moment you've just released out of Slicing Men. Is that right?
Yes, they came out the same last Tuesday as well, simultaneous with Steel and. What else? It was kind of something coming up. It's like these days I'm like 9/10 game lit, and so what are the other ones I have coming up soon? Outcast 4 is coming out soon, which I'm excited about, which is one of my favorite series as well. What else is coming out soon? Let's see. Oh, that's not me. That's my romance pseudonym. Shush. Let's see. Hold on.
Yeah, literally, Nathan.
Yeah, he has, my romance pseudonym has fun, but I prefer we're not talking about him. This is not that kind of wind up. That's Neil deGrasse Tyson. I have done a Neil deGrasse Tyson book, however. I talked to Neil deGrasse Tyson. I was recording an Audible, a Neil deGrasse Tyson book that was letters that people wrote to Neil deGrasse Tyson. And he was on Skype when we were recording. And so we had a couple minutes before we started. And so I got to talk with him a little bit. And he's like, oh, it's like, my name is also Neil. He's like, oh, my name is also Neil. And we both went simultaneously into this thing, which is like, Neil sounds like a common name. Like you've heard the name Neil, but in terms of people who have it, it's actually very low. So of course, Neil deGrasse Tyson goes off into this whole very specific thing about the actual odds of it. And then a producer from Audible comes in whose name is also Neil. And we all explode.
You're like, yeah, it's just Neils are just naturally at a higher level.
Let's see. So Outcast from Another World. Well, also a couple of I've been doing a bunch of these short story anthologies for Blackstone by an author named Gemma Files, who mostly writes short stories, but it's sort of interconnected world. Really great, weird, twisted stuff. Outcast Another World, Kamikaze Potato is later this month, and then Grim Guys, which is the third Voldrani series from Mr. Ugeland. That's in August. I have other ones that are. I'll have some other Athons that'll pop out in between here as well too. Dream of Wing and Fire. That's still Playman. That'll come in there too. Like going to work. Yes, Paul and I played through at Dragon Con. They had that arcade that everything was paid for, and we played through all of House of Dead. I think it was House of Dead 2. I forget. Just because it's a stupid game because it makes you spend money. There's no possible way to just actually merit your way through it. You just have to be able to pour it before. Like it was like $40. It would have been to actually get through it if you were just paying quarters. But anyway, I was saying that I needed to go. But yeah, always great to talk, man.
No, and it's great talking to you, mate. I know you've obviously got a rush, but thank you for coming on. Thank you for talking.
King Cultivator from Harmon Cooper as well, too. Yes. Sorry.
Yes.
Yeah.
He is the legend. But I will see you in a few weeks' time. We will get outrageously naughtily drunk.
You bet.
And say hi to the wife and kids for me.
We'll do. Cheers.
See you later, man.
So long.
Thank you, everybody. Bye-bye.
Bye.